Let me know when.
Live.
We are good. Okay. All right. Okay, welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Police Policy Committee of the Community Police Commission. It's Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. It is 5:33 and I'm actually calling this meeting to order. Roll call. Chandra Marrero Benito.
Present.
Tara Coleman.
Present.
Adriana Rodriguez.
Present.
And I am Pete Van Leer, the chair. So the agenda that's before us right now is just to look at the old business of the drone GPO, the Unmanned Aerial Systems GPO. We went through that pretty closely last week and hoping to, final discussion and take a vote tonight. And then if we have the time, we'll get into like looking at our priorities and how we spread those out and what we want to focus on. So that is that. Any questions about the agenda? Okay. We will go right into public comment then. If there's any public comment? Now it's time.
Harriet, just stand behind it.
Why is that?
Please stand behind the red line. Please stand behind the red line. All four.
Okay, is there any public comment? Okay. We have one commenter. We'll give former Commissioner Wong a chance to get to the mic. Okay, do you have a comment?
She does, but the
Okay,
mic's
the
not
mic's not
working. The mic's dead, so we'll just have to be vocal here. Do your best.
Are you serious? Can I use one of the mics?
Come around down here.
Bear with us while we deal with this technical issue. Okay, former Commissioner Wong, please.
So I'm former Commissioner Terry Wong. I was the sole dissenting vote on this drone policy in its original form. And due to public pressure, one of the provisions that was used to target protesters was removed, but the drone policy still exists in a form that not only is not protective of the community, but also has constitutional issues that I've researched. I know some of the things about surveillance have already been mentioned, but I want to point and I've given these provisions to the original commission, and I'm disappointed that these changes have not been made. One of the major issues is the data retention. It is still sitting at 30 days of data retention. This policy was basically lifted from Oakland. Oakland's, in comparison, was 5 days, because I see no reason to keep the data from drone usage for 30 days unless the division would be participating in what is called retroactive tracking, which is one of the things that was adjudicated in a recent 2018 Supreme Court case on drones. Another broader issue I see is that you have no enforcement ability. I'm looking here. I don't know whether it's going to be a group 1, 2, 3, or 4 violation for misuse of drones. And considering the massive privacy and constitutional issues, you should probably keep it at a group 3 or 4 in the least, but that is not. So a policy without enforcement capabilities is basically an inert policy. And I say this not in theory, and not just because the protesters were targeted with this policy on November 24th, 2024, but I've received many recent reports of unauthorized and unsanctioned drone usage by the city. Maybe not under the official guise of the police, but also still through other arms of the city in order to potentially surveil citizens. I do want to make a final comment about how this editing of this drone policy is being managed. The public should know that we do have a surveillance tech work group. I was forced off of that work group by Mr. Van Leer. He has, in my observation, 3 times worked in secret with the city on these policies. The work group is set up so that community members can participate in the policy making. I'm not sure why that is not being opened, considering the significant, gravity of this policy. And to give you an idea of how I ran my work groups on the discipline committee, we had a committee for the Grady Giglio work group. One of our lawyers, and Ms. Coleman, you are a lawyer, and I would suggest this, gave us pre-reading material about Grady Giglio from the Georgetown Law Review. Ms. Coleman, I would suggest that you may be able to do some research and provide the committee all the constitutional cases. I'm happy to give you the ones that I found that would formulate a basis of conversation and insight about the issues that have already been taken care of by our judicial system with regards to drones
Okay,
before you proceed further.
thank you, Ms. Wong.
And I would recommend that you do not pass this policy because I will be working with the DOJ to fix all the things that
Okay,
you are
thank
not
you, Ms.
fixing.
Wong.
But the
Thank you,
community
Ms.
should
Wong.
not be having to
Okay.
babysit you, Mr. Family.
Is there any other public comment? I don't think so. All right, so we can move forward. We're into old business of the drone policy, which we discussed in depth last week. And I just want to start off by kind of giving an overview of the process so far. We got the draft from the division, I believe at some point last year, I don't remember the date, but in August, September, October, we started working. I worked with Brian Ray. He is at Cleveland State University. He's a surveillance technology issue. And he and one of his law students worked, and they drew heavily from the Oakland policy. And then that was shared out with community members pretty broadly, including surveillance tech group members. And we did not call a meeting of that group, but we were sharing it with them, and some of them commented, some of them did not. And that included Brian Ray, included Jonathan Whitmer-Rich at Cleveland State, included two former commissioners who are constitutional law experts, and some of them gave feedback, some did not. Dave Lyman also did that.
Mr. Van Leer,
And so on November 11th,
Jason,
leading up to that,
this
the
is
policy committee voted,
Terry.
discussed, and voted.
officers.
And it
You
was
need
also
to
shared
know-
back
You
out
can
in
come
that
get me
period of
because
time. And I am remiss, I forgot to read
The
this.
community needs to know that Mr. Van
The
Leer
this
has
meeting of
made
The Community
factual
Police
inaccuracy
Community Police
statements.
Commission is
Dr.
a lawful
Whitmer-Rich,
meeting.
Luke Katz, and
Under
Board of
section
Treatment did not look at this
605.04
policy.
of codified
I wonder
ordinances,
why
no
Commissioner Van Leer
person
keeps
with
lying about
purpose to
who
render,
has
disrupt
looked
a
at this
lawful meeting
policy.
shall do any act
You
which
need to stop
obstructs
lying.
or interferes with the due conduct of such meeting.
Go ahead.
Members of
I'm
the
gonna
public
arrest
are
you.
invited to speak in accordance with the public comment
Because
rules.
he is lying.
Disruptions,
You guys are
including but not
committing
limited to
misconduct
speaking
by
out of
allowing
turn
this to
and or
happen.
making loud utterances that interferes with the due conduct of this
That's
meeting
unconstitutional what you're
may
just saying.
constitute a misdemeanor and a violation of section 605.04. If this meeting is disrupted, I will call for a recess and the room will be cleared. Persons who violate the city ordinances and commit misdemeanors may be subject to prosecution. When this body is able to return from recess, then in compliance with the Ohio Open Meeting Act and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances, the meeting will be open to the public. All right, as I was saying, we did a lot, we shared a lot with the community. We voted on November 11th at the policy committee to approve this and send it to full commission. It was shared, in that meanwhile, it was also shared with members of the work group and the members of the community. We got a lot of feedback. And at the full commission meeting, we did approve that with some changes. In the intervening period of time, we sent that pretty quickly to the Department of Justice. And from December to January, we continued to receive more feedback from members of the community, including also members of the Surveillance Tech Committee. And during that period of time, we did a lot of work. The commission, for much of the time, was not really operating because we only had 4 members, or fewer than 7 for sure, since December 5th. But again, a lot of the same people in the community, the constitutional experts, did have a chance to review it. And again, not all of them did, but many of them I was in touch with. We got Department of Justice feedback and the monitoring feedback in January, and we incorporated that. There weren't, from my view, particularly substantive changes, but we did make, there's still some probably. One of the things that we're looking at is the must versus shall, and we're going to deal with that afterwards. But we included people like Gary Daniels, who was on the tech work group. He's with the ACLU of Ohio, defense attorney John Martin, and again, others who have that expertise. So that is our recap of how this process went. It's been pretty exhaustive, and I think we talked to a lot of the right people. So now we have this policy before us, and I'd like to see if there are any questions. So since last Wednesday, Alex and I worked to incorporate, mostly Alex, worked to incorporate the changes we discussed. And I think before you have that copy, and I sent it out whenever that was, Friday, I believe. And that also included, we had a request to the police to look at one section in particular about the sector supervisor versus the U.S. supervisor, and they created a section, that pulled out the responsibilities of the sector supervisor who's, on the road basically. So those are the changes we have. I hope we've captured everything that we discussed last week. I'm pretty sure we have. And so, yeah, if there's any questions, we can move forward.
I mean, I have a discussion, but I don't know.
Go for it.
So I guess my discussion point or concern is C1. And I know we highlighted last week, it's on page 5, C1,
What's the section?
prohibited use. And basically it says about conducting surveillance of individual groups within demonstrations, other large gatherings, or crowd control. And I know that last week that, we highlighted about, the political climate, and just in 2 months, in Lincoln Heights and Everdale, which was just 2 months ago, the Nazis came, and then there was another instance in Cincinnati where they were throwing cans. So I do understand the concern. However, in my opinion, I believe that there's some instances where there might need to be monitoring to where others don't. And I feel that if we have an all or nothing approach, that they're just going to seek other partnerships, and that there will not be any oversight or, consent decree monitoring over those partnerships.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I think because we do have the ability to, when there's probable cause, I'm not, Alex, can you help me out where the language is on that? I'm sort of looking around, pre-authorized use. Hold on, please let me speak. Okay. I understand what it says in the prohibited use, but there's command approval.
Under section 3B3.
There you go, thank you. Where there's probable cause that a crime is being or has been committed where public safety is being endangered, that would meet the requirements for a warrantless search under the Fourth Amendment. So when that's happening, you have to have somebody approve it. But it can, if that's happening in the situation where there is a public demonstration or a large gathering, that can be approved.
But this says it's strictly prohibited. So under prohibited use C1, it
Yes,
says the
but-
following is non-exhaustive list of activities that are strictly prohibited.
Yes, but
So
when there's a
I guess-
cause, when there's a crime being committed or public safety, that's go ahead, Alex.
Certainly. So the provision that you're referring to prohibits surveillance for the purpose of surveilling, for the purpose of just surveilling these groups. To the extent that there is knowledge of a crime that may be committed or is about to be committed or could be committed, that would then fall under section 3C, permitting use when there's probable cause and allowing the division to fly over, use the drone to fly over the water.
Okay, so if for me, the Nazis, right, or the KKK, so this is still allowing them in those instances. That's what I'm understanding, correct?
I think so, because when there's probable cause of a crime, that is allowed, and that is not prohibited under 4C1, because C starts with other than supporting official law enforcement and public safety operations as authorized herein. So anything authorized herein, not in conflict.
But it says 3B, subject to the prohibitions found in that section.
Just surveillance.
So it says under,
What's in
in 3B3, section 3, subsection B3, other circumstances, including flying over large clouds where there's probable cause that a crime is being or has been committed. So if a crime is being committed or there's public safety at issue, and then if, as Commissioner Coleman pointed out, using it for any reason other than supporting official law enforcement and public safety operations, which again is if a crime has been committed or there's a public safety issue. There's an interplay there, but it's pretty clear to me that it's allowed.
Where's the section you said except?
It's under prohibited use.
Section
C1.
4C1.
Yeah, on page 5.
That?
So I think the difference here is about conducting surveillance for the purpose of conducting surveillance as opposed to responding to something that's happening. So in your situation, if there is a Nazi protest, the fact that there is a Nazi protest alone does not fall under where it says probable cause of that a crime is being committed or where public safety is being endangered that would meet the requirements for warrantless search. So to your point, if there was a Nazi protest, that alone is not enough to meet that standard because you can't conduct surveillance for the purpose of conducting surveillance. However, if there is a Nazi protest and something starts to go wrong, then at that point, the section 3B3 would kick in and they would be able to fly the drone. And I think that what CDP is saying is, well, it would be nice if we could be kind of looking at the situation in advance. That way we can respond more quickly. And I think that the issue with that is that what we're saying is if you know there's a Nazi protest, we're fully expecting CDP to have the drone there, like on a launch pad ready. And so I think this idea that we would, we're talking about losing a minute, maybe. A minute makes a difference, but also the potential threat of surveillance of protesters, which they have shown that they are going to, that they would use the drones for because that was their very first use of the drones, that we have to protect against that. And the idea is that the 1 minute that you might lose, while might be unfortunate, is not worth potentially harming people's First Enforcement rights.
So I guess just a follow-up question, because then, so then we have the drone, we have it on site, right? So then the pilot and the visual observers have to come, ensure, inspect the scene, communicate with each other, communicate with the officer in charge, and then possibly the chief or designee, right? That's my understanding of the procedure, right? So then they get the approval, they have to turn on the drone, right? I don't operate drones, so hopefully it's fast, they have the fastest technology, and then it can go up and I don't want to do the drone activities, right? So that's my understanding.
So Commissioner, did you have something to add? Go ahead.
I had a question to your point. Because I do agree that a minute makes a difference. But also, I guess, in regard to what constitutes a crime, right? In terms of groups like the KKK or Nazi groups, right? Is hate speech or
And they don't know the basic constitution issues. No, they don't. She just said that we needed to preemptively.
what would it be considered?
Can we have quiet here in the room, please?
This is ridiculous. We have no.
Does that not constitute a crime? I guess is what I'm asking.
It doesn't matter. I should be at that table because these people have no idea.
The public has a right to protest. That
Doesn't
it's
matter.
hard
This
to
is
talk
regardless
about in the abstract what may cross the line between the right to peacefully protest and then, a disruption of, the public, endangering the public. So to the extent there's, people battling one another or two sides converging with one another, at that point, there would be probable cause to believe that, crime is being committed, assault or something. But to the extent that any group or members are peacefully protesting, that is protected under the First Amendment. So I think here what you guys are doing is balancing the rights of the public and demonstrators to peacefully protest while also ensuring that safety is paramount, but not trampling on those rights of those First Amendment protesters by virtue of surveilling.
Okay.
That might not have answered your question specifically, but there's so many scenarios that could arise, and that have arisen, and that will require, on the ground, immediate, determination by.
Yeah, and I'll say in response to that, so, it's not necessarily, they're not making a determination of whether a crime has occurred, but probable cause. And police officers make probable cause determinations, every day. That's like their bread and butter, in their policing. So they're really well trained up in probable cause scenarios. And so, yeah, so it's not, I don't think it's as hard as, there does not have to be an ongoing crime. And then I will say, to the other concerns, if something is immediately popping off at a demonstration, that probable cause requiring pre-authorization is not at all times going to be the only way a drone can be deployed. So you have under the pre-authorized use scenarios that, capture really serious situations under 2A, right? Okay, so we've got disaster management, rescue operations, and then under 2A8, fleeing suspects and arrest of armed and or dangerous persons. So, which I think could cover some of the, scenarios we were hypothetical, but no.
Well, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't want to.
Okay, but that's my piece. I just wanted to clarify, it's a probable cause
So I think-
determination, which we trust our officers.
I think we've discussed this. Oh, Jason, do you have?
Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
From a historical perspective, I just want to say this is a different tool, but it's the same problem. The consent decree here is primarily to serve marginalized communities. The most surveilled community has been the marginalized communities in Cleveland. The communities that are the poorest, the communities where the Black and brown citizens reside. And although we're using Nazis as the example,
Yeah.
it's a bad example because police historically have kept files on the marginalized communities in Cleveland and elsewhere through surveillance. This is a new tool, right? For people who have never committed a crime and just exercising their rights to protest their government, right? So we have to keep it in that context a little bit about the history that you're dealing with here, right? And why surveillance is so touchy, right? This is complicated. If you look up the history of COINTELPRO, where the FBI was keeping files on people who they felt were a threat to the government or communists or whatever they may feel, a drone would have been the perfect tool that they would have used back then to follow you around and build a file on you when you haven't committed a crime. You just exercise your rights. So just a little historical perspective.
Well, I think from this perspective, I guess, if I may, from what may appear to be a little bit biased, right, for Black and brown people, the equivalent to that for us would be a KKK or Nazi group, right? But identifying that obviously the people that will probably be subject to this the most are Black and brown communities. If the perceived threat were equivalent to, let's say, a Nazi group, which is for us, right, a great threat, a KKK group, which for us if I were super concerned about any group protesting, these would be the groups that would alarm me the most. So if that same thought process or perceived notion is created around Black and brown protest groups, as I think just recently it was talked about the large protest that just occurred in the last week, how these protesters were not met with the same amount of surveillance, scrutiny, police force, et cetera, because there was a large absence of Black and brown people involved in these protests. But when there are perceived threats, what identifies the right or the threat to safety for the community around that group, right? So to that example being the Nazis, the KKK, when I see that group, I perceive a threat personally, right? And that could be a little biased. But on the other hand, when people see a group of people who look like me protesting our rights in a very, and probably a less violent, but very similar fashion, there is a perceived threat. And there's often the identity of a crime being committed just on virtue of these people being there. So
All right. I feel like thank you for that, and thank you, Dr. Goodrich. Okay, I think we need to wrap up this, but go ahead.
Yeah, so what I would say is that I think overall is a great policy besides that one concern of mine. But I think overall, I'm really glad that there's documentation and we can really display the different patterns, whether it's individual or groups. I think that's the way to monitor and track, right?
All right.
Okay, guys, do not hate me. I don't know how I missed this the last time, but I would like well, let me throw this out there and get how you guys go. On 4C1,
What page?
5. And I do know we discussed this at length, and if I recall last week, kind of the discussion was whether to do conducting surveillance period or keep it as written. Could we do conducting surveillance of individuals or groups, comma, including? Because to me, it reads as if the surveillance is only limited in public demonstrations, and that was not our intent based on the discussions of last week.
Could you repeat what you just said? Sorry.
If we could do, all right, I am on page 5, section 4C1. My understanding is our intent was to prevent surveillance. How it reads now, it almost indicates as if the surveillance is only prohibited in instances of demonstrations, but I believe our intent was to prohibit surveillance simply for the purpose of surveillance. And so because that's our intent, I think the change should be conducting surveillance of individuals or groups, comma, including within public, just to make it more clear that that provision is not limited to instances of demonstration.
I like that.
And then one other comment, there was just a missing letter, I think,
We can
somewhere.
do, yeah, there's always going to be a correction, but like if you slide it, we'll definitely make sure that's.
The missing numberings on page 14. UAS transport in a vehicle, I believe should that be A? Or maybe we removed it because if there's not a B, you don't do A. But I'm sure we'll leave open
It's just
typos,
a-
grammatical errors. Anyways,
We'll flag that, you see it, Alex?
I'm sorry.
Section 12, there's no subsection header, no letter.
it would just be weird to cite to
Section 12.
It's the UAS transported vehicle
It goes
is,
right to the I.
Okay, yeah, I don't
This
know,
is
I'm
easy
sorry, I don't know
fix.
what changed when we revised it. We made some formatting changes, I guess.
But whoever drafts the motion, I mean,
We'll
we'll
fix it.
keep in there, right, for typos, that type of thing. Okay.
yeah, we'll fix that. Okay. All right, so are there any other comments or discussion that we can just move forward? So I'm going to make a motion that we pass this with the correction, not correction, but a revision from Commissioner Coleman on that section. To add the comment and including, which we've documented.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? So I'm going to do a roll call.
If I may, just to ensure that there's no errors when this goes to the full commission, if the committee can pass the motion and include within the motion a provision that all clerical changes will be made, and all may versus shall language will be changed pursuant to the prior comment, along with any other grammatical or other errors.
Okay.
I moved to amend the motion to make a provision that grammatical and other formatting changes can be made, and in addition to resolving the issue of must versus shall. I need a second.
I'll second that motion. All right. Any further discussion? So I'll do a roll call vote.
This is on the amendment, correct?
Oh, right, on the amendment, yes. No comments on the amendment, so we'll vote on the amendment. Commissioner Marrero Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
No.
Commissioner Van Leer, I vote aye. So the amendment to the motion has passed. Now are there any other comments or questions about the overall motion to pass the GPO as noted? With revisions noted and the clarification around corrections. Okay, no comment. So roll call vote. Commissioner Marrero Benito.
Oh, sorry, aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
I apologize. I was a bit distracted and I'm not sure what we were voting on. I'm sorry.
The whole GPO. We voted on the amendment first. The amendment to the motion was voted first to accept the corrections law. And now we're.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were passing it with those changes. So I am aye, yes.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez.
No, I just have a concern with 4C1.
Well, we're past discussion.
Yeah.
So you've already made your concern. You don't need to say it again. Commissioner Van Leer, I vote aye. So this passes 3-1. All right. So that will now go to the full commission next week, I believe. And then then it has to go to the DOJ and the monitoring team. There's still a bit of a road ahead. And then we will move forward from there. So our next item of business, new business.
It's distracting, the noise in the background, so I would like to suggest that we either clear the room following this procedure, or we
Yeah, I will call the meeting to order. We're being disrupted by side conversations, so please ask you to refrain and please refrain from disrupting this lawful meeting. Speaking out of turn or making distracting or loud utterances interferes with due conduct of this meeting. So I'm warning you that this activity is in violation of codified ordinances and has to stop.
They can continue their meeting, it's nonsense.
Yeah, if you recess, we can clear the room.
No,
and then you can
we're gonna have to recess this meeting. So I'm going to call a recess. This meeting cannot continue with its business due to disruption. So as a result, I move that we recess until the disruption has concluded. Can I get a second for this motion?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are recessed.
You can just pause it, or you'll have to restart it. You can, except it's not, well, yeah, you can.
So if you all would just please leave and then when we come back to order.
Already sent out the link.
Can you make it?
All right, we gotta leave. Everybody's gotta leave.
Yeah, we're recessing, we're clearing the room. Well, it shouldn't be.
No, it's not.
Like, I'm trying to get this going, I didn't go out of here.
We should just adjourn.
Yeah, so how long, what's the thing for how long we gotta recess?
We got priorities until they get out of the room.
Everybody gets out of the room. Everybody's got to clear the room, please.
Oh, yeah, you have to go.
Why?
Well, who was that?
They called a recess, that's not constitutional. This is a public meeting, they can continue.
I
the
know.
meeting.
Well, it's not a public
They are
meeting
just-
anymore.
I know.
They are just leaving.
The meeting's been shut down.
No, they shut, they called.
Let them do their work and we'll.
Thank you. Not leaving.
Oh, yeah.
Because they wasn't sheriff's department.
So, yeah, as soon as we all get out the recess.
We don't have to.
I will make.
Yeah, we don't.
Committee members and chairs need to physically stand up from the conference table and
Right, well, you gotta recess for right now.
You don't have the
We
right
can go to
control
the back
markers.
since we're part of it. We
The
said
marker
no,
can
get
speak
out.
out.
we should recheck.
I mean,
Keep Chuck right now.
trying to understand the process of things that probably were prior
They
to
can't
that
designate when.
No, I was just telling you with a hot mess.
Well, this is the process.
I just want to clarify.
You got through the main point of business.
They call the business, but they don't get to their rules are unconstitutional.
No.
I just want to make sure.
No, he just wants to.
No, I just literally, this is new, like.
I'm a
No,
commissioner.
There's a
lot of trauma from the
make
last.
decisions based on context.
He just wants certain. So it wasn't
I understand.
personal.
No, I know, I know it's not personal, I just want to make sure.
That they're gonna partner with other entities
I can imagine.
where we won't be able to have.
She doesn't make it.
That was my
What are you
main
talking
concern.
about? The Nazis are partner with other
Like
entities?
terrorism.
Okay, I get it.
No one else would be allowed to do that. You know, it's-
Like,
it's-
you
can
know,
special
before they
exception.
did
There's not, no special
Right?
exception.
You do.
This is a man that sexually harassed me
So,
4
as I
times
said,
because
when
of
the
what
fact
he
that
did.
all
You
or
guys,
nothing.
you guys have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
What's
Including
that?
George,
You
you
guys
see
want
George
to
is
get off.
So
surprised.
like I said.
Yeah, we could all go in there for.
You guys all go into.
What I was trying to say is that the police department, you won't utilize the drones, but they will partner with the sheriff department who will use the drones. And then you won't have to.
Now we
worry.
won't have to check.
Right, then they don't have to track it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And so in regard to the amendment that you were referring to, what was it, 4C?
Yeah.
Because that's what will have, they can partner with the sheriff's department. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping order.
Trying.
We know. I need that. Man, I guess I don't need my name tag.
So, first, you requested that we complete a report for you for your interaction with, Mr. Goodrich, which we are going to do today.
And also with the commission, please.
With the commission, that's fine. Officer Lussey here was going to get your information and what occurred for that report. He will give you the report number, when he's complete, and if you're requesting 2 reports, that's fine, we'll complete 2 reports for you, okay? And now, he'll take care of that, and then, the commission is back in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, and I'll be right back.
Wait, you guys need something to your commissioner report. This current.
Yes.
No, stay right here.
Why can't we order the same things? He's the law, he's part of the,
Ma'am.
I'm not gonna go in.
Ma'am.
He's part of the law.
Ma'am, step back over here so I can complete your report.
I can stand here and listen.
Over here, ma'am, so I can talk, because I want to talk to you away from that conversation.
Well, you have an assistant director of law telling people to make an intimidation, to make a disruption of a public meeting report.
If you make a report against them.
We're making
I know,
your
but
report.
there's no disruption in the meeting.
Separate,
There's
separate.
no report
You're a
in the meeting.
victim.
You guys have already made.
We have body cameras going, ma'am.
You're a victim.
Okay, what? Of what? Does this constitute disruption of a, like, does this constitute that? Because they're violating people's constitutional rights here for free speech.
I was just gonna get my cane.
Look at this, he's instructing them.
Do you have a, give a phone number?
216-264. 6998.
6998. Okay, what are you saying happened to?
Well, the commission is using rules that it established that are unconstitutional in order to violate people's constitutional rights for free speech and petition to. They have denied public records requests, refusing to give information on an impending drone policy that affects everybody, including police officers.
Denied public records request?
Yes. Mr. Goodrich has acted outside of the jurisdiction of the law department. The law department has ordered them to turn over these records. Mr. Van Leer has repeatedly lied about who has engaged with this policy, and he's allowed to, because he's a public official, and because he has the money, he is allowed to continue to lie to the public about this policy. And the last time,
What was that? I'm sorry, what was that about, Mr. Van Leer?
Mr. Van Leer has repeatedly lied to the public and to other commissioners about who has engaged with this policy. He's manipulated people into thinking that the right experts and the right eyes have gotten onto this. The policy still has things that I believe in other constitutional cases have already been found unconstitutional in Fourth Amendment issues. So I am, like, this is not my chosen method of dealing with them. I've been trying to email them for weeks to have a conversation, a legitimate one, about these issues. They refuse. They refuse to give me the documents that are necessary to understand what has happened with this policy. Other community members have come up to speak against this policy, and they have not done anything. This is just a show.
Okay, how long is this, how long ago did you ask for these records?
Since November. Since November. This is a corrupt commission that is acting outside of the charter. Mark Griffin needs to enforce this. I do not intend to disrupt this meeting, and it cannot be based on their sensibilities. Any amount of dissent or disagreement they consider disruption, and in stopping my ability to speak on these matters or to engage on these matters, it's a violation of my constitutional rights.
I'll let you know. Once he's done, I was gonna do exactly.
And then Mr. Goodrich is using the police, asking the police to try to intimidate me. He approached, Sergeant, what did he say to you? That he said for me to get away from. The only reason I was talking to him was that he can go to the table and speak on my behalf. That means that it's not about me. It is about the content, what I'm saying. That is a chilling on free speech.
It just mentions me. You were in his space.
I wasn't in his space. You saw me.
I can only.
How can I be close? How can I speak in such a way that he can hear me, that doesn't disrupt like the volume of the meeting unless I was close enough to him? Why has he not made himself available for discussion on this issue? And you have an assistant director of law saying in there that I disrupted the meeting. He better go read the city ordinance and constitutional law about what is required.
So
So you have,
Akila Jordan, I have a situation where I was shot in the back in Cleveland, Ohio. A very terrible situation. There wasn't like Akila Jordan, no matter what I do, Akila Jordan is really treat me with disrespect and contempt. And her last message to me, no matter what I do at City Hall, no matter who I complain to, she said, make a police report. So, yes, this sounds ridiculous.
You never had an original report when you were shot in the
This sounds
back?
ridiculous. But I'm doing what I'm
No, I'm just asking, have you ever had a report before when you were shot in the back?
absolutely, sir.
Okay, so she wants you to make a police report for,
She wants me to make a police report. I'm going to tell you right now, just so she could follow the procedural policy.
okay,
You ready, brother?
try.
My name is Mark Cummings. Thank you.
for months.
My name is Mark Cummings.
I can assure you, I will not advocate this in any way except that this thing is
Your
going to
address?
harm living numbers every day.
47.
There's extra persons that you know there. Several
West side?
Yes.
Okay.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Is that 111?
The assistant director Bob using misappropriating the city charter to try to intimidate me out of like to make
What's the,
report
what's the-
intimidating from participating. What is his name? Mr. Alex something. He's in being notified. And
16%?
no name of who he is. I think the public should be able to know who is giving not so good advice.
Sarge?
What did she
All right,
say?
just to make sure it was you, so he didn't know who the sergeant was. I didn't remember your name.
Sergeant Cook.
You better read up on that constitutional law, yeah. I'll send it to
Chief,
you.
take care.
He's shocking me and pretending to be me as a working person. And a concern.
Yes,
I
sir.
request a search of 47 West 156th Street, and 4525 West 156th Street. And all electronic devices be taken to find proof of stalking, including computer, phone, and papers.
And I'll sign it, I'll do it, I'll do the report to you. All right.
That's no problem.
Take these people into custody for a time waiting for my hope that there's more intelligence and for trying to kill me.
All right.
Judith Rogers,
So, all right, Chief, we got it.
4525 West 156th Street. Russell Perry,
So you have the elements, describe to me the elements, you're working with the executive director of the commission, so we did last time, trying to get you.
So what the director was doing was he was just confirming who I was or
Okay, so who was he talking to?
Deputy Chief Shaw.
And that was the last person that he worked with and tried to intimidate you out of the
Oh,
So you're saying Jared
So
Schwab
that,
is
that
instructing him
you got
to
right there was
prosecute. Do you understand that Brenda
You
did
sent
not
that to
sack
her?
him on
The
his
city,
exception.
yes,
On
the
the
city
case,
of
the
Cleveland
bullet
prosecutor's
did
office.
nothing. Okay.
Deputy Chief Shaw just advised me to report for that as
Please reach out to the local police station. This is what Akila told me after. I've already
It's
told
really-
her.
it's really-
I've already reached out.
Because you're saying things that are
Would you like to step up here? Did you get all the information for, the report?
Can you email
I
us
would like
to
to
me?
know
I
who
would
he
love
is.
to, I would like to prove that. That's all I want.
Did you get all the information? Did you get all the information for?
I got his information, she's gonna send me the email and stuff, but
Sure, yes, please. And make sure that you
They won't know about that. They have no, this is, you guys don't have respond. Are you okay with people like this managing your policy and discipline? My God. Yeah, you guys on your face to say it. Yes.
Yeah, you got report cards.
So I just want to confirm that Jared Schlock was on the phone telling
You
him
just, I'll
to
just
make
put
the
my name on the
report
back.
and that he was going to pursue with the prosecutors. Is this going to be pursued with the prosecutors? Is anything going to be pursued by North Griffin?
The report that's being
So
completed.
no, I don't understand.
I can,
Deputy Chief Schlock was not here, right? He was not present for the
let me
events.
explain to you.
Okay.
Okay, how it works. Officer Bussey, you're doing a report for Ms. Wang, you're doing
Yes.
2 reports. And what are those reports you're doing for her?
What are the report titles?
Yes.
I'm not sure on that, I have to discuss that with you.
once we determine the reports, which you'll have the report number, then you'll need to follow up with the prosecutor's office, okay? And the prosecutor is the one that determines if there's enough evidence or this incident is going to be prosecuted, okay? We complete the report.
But this is the eighth time for intimidation. Last time we had documented a community member saying that she wanted to commit physical assault towards me. Aquila Jordan, the monitor, Charles C., was willing to testify to this extent. The Aquila Jordan did nothing, contacted no witnesses. So I know what is happening here. Whatever he is working on, and it's very clear now, he's working with police leadership. It is what everybody has said about Jason Goodrick. This is not necessarily a reflection on you. And there's elements of the police that are working against each other. But this is not okay that he is talking directly with the deputy chief in order to manipulate a report in order to, I would like to, yeah.
Okay. So you will follow up with the prosecutor, you said you have in the past, so you're familiar with the process, correct?
Not really, because they didn't send me any documentation. It was the worst experience I've ever had.
Okay. So
They never even gave me a letter explaining why.
I don't, as far as their processes, I don't know what their processes are for the prosecutor. But it's, when you complete the report for you, you can go down to the prosecutor's office and you can speak with the prosecutor, okay? And what they do from there and whether they get paperwork, I don't know that process, okay? But I want to make sure that you know.
I understand, but I
and
want to understand. Why are you making a false report when the elements of disrupting the meeting have not been met?
Let me tell you,
The elements, you're making a false report right now, because the elements of the disruption of the meeting are not being met.
they have requested a report.
I requested a report for their assault that was documented, and they would not write that report. Your officers would not, your officers would not write that report. Even though the two subordinate officers agreed, the person in charge was not going to there and look at my footage and show these two assaulting me. And by the way, so you're not, so, yeah.
We are completing the report. We've been requested by the commission.
You can't just, but you cannot just make reports based on false statements that made. That's a false report. So then I will charge these officers, and then I have to do another OPS investigation on that. Are you working in collaboration with Gerald Schlatt? My gosh, this is exactly what happened last time. That Jason said he's been discussing things with Schlatt. Why is the executive director discussing things with the deputy executive chief? By the way, Chandra, you have standards you have to meet based on as a social worker, and I will make sure to file those complaints. Okay. Because you assaulted me, Chandra. Okay, yeah, okay. Lied to call the police
I'm not
yesterday.
engaging with you.
You're not engaging in
Turn
something.
around.
Right, don't engage, you're not engaging.
So what are they gonna do? They're gonna continue the meeting?
It's up, they're making that decision.
So it was fine, they could have continued the meeting before, why did they do that before? So they wanted to intervene, no, there was no disruption, Sergeant, I'm asking you one simple question. What were the elements of the crime of disruption of the meeting that I met? Please tell me that. Please tell me that.
The meeting was disrupted.
They don't get to determine that, the law has to determine that. They don't get to determine that. That is their unconstitutional right that they have established according to a city statute that is incorrect.
But I'll give you this.
But I don't have to leave, this is a public meeting, this is something from a private
And
city.
as of now, see what they do. Is there
All right,
anything else?
I would like to
I'm
make a
going to,
report
recess
about
is
false
ended.
report they're making.
Do we know if this is working?
That you are?
Haven't seen talked to them yet, okay?
But he is
Where did,
I'm
The sound is
giving
definitely on, 'cause that never stops,
instructions
but,
on how to criminalize me, again, from Gerald
If you
Schlatt.
would like an additional report, Officer Bussey can do that,
Thank you.
okay? So, as of now,
All right, you're good.
okay, all right, thank you. So, the recess is ended and the meeting will come to order. We have, due to the ongoing disruption, I would make a motion that we adjourn this meeting until further notice. Do you have a second?
Also, just to note for the record that Commissioner Rodriguez left during the recess, but yes, I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
And
Aye. This meeting is officially adjourned at 6:27 PM.
Well,